I was minutes from closing my struggling bakery for the night, when an old man rushed in begging me to bake a last-minute cake for his wife's 80th birthday. He'd completely forgotten. I worked all night pouring my heart into it. I had no idea his granddaughter was the city's most feared food critic, and that my small act of kindness would become the most important review of my career. This is the story of a cake that saved a dream. Before we fire up the ovens, tell me, which city are you watching from today? And be sure to subscribe for daily stories. Okay, let's go to that bakery. There is a particular kind of sorrow that comes from watching your own dream die slowly and quietly. For 2 years, my bakery, the sweetest thing, had been everything to me. I poured my life savings and a bank loan, which I was now behind on, into the shop. It was a lovely little place, filled with the warm scents of my grandmother's cinnamon, butter, and caramelized sugar. It was exactly the bakery I wanted, and it was failing. It was 9 p.m. on a Friday. I was alone, as I always was at closing. Behind the long, beautiful, and empty glass display case, I checked the numbers on my tablet. They were merciless. 2 months behind on rent. A final notice from the bank on my cluttered back desk. I knew with a cold certainty that I had maybe 1 or 2 weeks before I would have to lock the door for good. I was wiping down counters, the familiar, dispiriting end-of-day ritual, when the small bell above the front door chimed. I looked up with a flicker of hope. It wasn't a regular customer. It was an old man not here for a croissant, but in a state of absolute panic. He was in his late 70s, dressed in an old but fine tweed coat, his face white with fear. He looked at my empty cases and then at me, his blue eyes wide and pleading. "Please," he whispered, as he rushed to the counter. "Please, tell me you're not closed. I have made a terrible, catastrophic, life-ruining mistake." He looked at me like I was his last hope. "You are my only hope." His panic was palpable, a frantic energy that cut against my own tired resignation. "Slow down, sir," I said as calmly as I could. "Tell me what's wrong." The story tumbled out. His name was Calvin. Tomorrow was his wife Eleanor's 80th birthday. He'd completely forgotten. After her recent bout of pneumonia, the date had slipped his mind. When he realized this morning, he spent the day searching for a proper cake, but every bakery was either closed or fully booked. "She deserves a parade," he said, voice breaking. "A damn parade. I don't even have a cupcake to give her. She'll wake up and think I forgot her," and my heart couldn't bear that. I looked at him, a devoted, loving husband, and thought of why I started the bakery. Not to get rich, but to make things that brought people joy, to be part of their important moments. The practical part of me, exhausted, broke, out of ingredients, on the verge of losing the shop, wanted to say no. This wasn't my problem, but his gaze was a simple human plea, and the baker in me, the girl who learned at her grandmother's knee and believes in the magic of a birthday cake, wouldn't let the tired businesswoman win. "What kind of cake?" I asked, quietly. He lit up. "She loves the classics. A 3-layer red velvet with old-fashioned cream cheese frosting," he added, with a twinkle. "If it's not too much trouble, she's very particular about a single perfect sugar-spun rose on top." A 3-layer red velvet, with cream cheese and a hand-spun sugar rose was not a simple request. It was an 8-hour technical and costly creation. I almost laughed at the impossibility, but I nodded. "Okay, Calvin, I can do that." He was so grateful he could barely stand still. He tried to pay, pulling out a wad of cash, but I stopped him. "Pay me in the morning," I said. "Pick it up at 10 a.m. He left with a hopeful spring in his step. I was alone again in the quiet, now very late bakery. It was 9:30 p.m. I was about to spend the night making a single cake for a stranger, by any rational business metric, the worst decision of my career. Still, I tied on my flour-dusted apron, opened my grandmother's well-worn recipe book, and turned on the industrial mixer. The familiar hum was a comfort. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt like a baker. That was enough. I spent the night in a focused, oddly beautiful state. The city outside was dark and sleeping, but in my kitchen under fluorescent lights, a small important world came alive. I didn't use the cheaper bulk ingredients I'd been forced to use lately. I reached for a hidden stash, imported Belgian chocolate, the vanilla beans I'd hoarded, fresh organic cream cheese. I would lose money on the cake, a significant amount, but I didn't care. This was about honoring my craft and the 55 years of love I'd been asked to help celebrate. As I worked through the long hours, exhaustion dissolved into joy. I thought of my grandmother's patient hands guiding mine, of presenting my mother with her 50th birthday cake. Baking had never been about profit, it had always been about love. By sunrise, the cake was finished, a magnificent three-tier red velvet, deep and even in color. The cream cheese frosting was smooth and pristine. On top sat a single, perfect hand-spun sugar rose, petals almost translucent, a tiny dew of sugar at its stem. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever made. I placed it in an elegant box I'd saved for a wedding that was canceled and sat down in one of my empty cafe chairs to wait, feeling a strange, peaceful sense of purpose. My business might be failing, but for this night I had been a true baker, and that felt enough. At precisely 10 hours in a.m. the bell chimed. Calvin arrived, looking tired but hopeful. When he saw the box, he stopped. I opened it. He stared at the cake. Tears filled his kind blue eyes. He took my flour-dusted hand. "Thank you, my dear," he whispered. "You haven't just saved a forgetful old man, you've honored my wife. I can never repay you." He left carrying the cake as if it were the most precious thing in the world. As the door chimed behind him, I felt a chapter close. My work there, I thought, was done. I had no idea a few blocks away, at a boisterous 80th birthday party, my cake would become the star of an event I wasn't invited to. I didn't know that one guest, a young woman with a sharp face and an even sharper pen, would become the angel investor and unexpected marketing director my bakery desperately needed. Juliana, the granddaughter, arrived at the party heavy-hearted. She loved her grandparents fiercely, the only soft thing in an otherwise armored life. As the city's most influential and feared food critic, she lived in a world of cynicism, pretentious restaurants, and fragile chef egos. Today she was furious with her grandfather. The party, meant to celebrate a life well lived, felt tense. Her grandmother pretended not to care, but Juliana saw the small disappointment in her eyes. An hour earlier, her grandfather had vanished. Then he returned, flushed from the cold, eyes shining with relief, carrying a large white box from a bakery Juliana didn't recognize. "I got it," he announced. He placed the box on the table and opened it. The room went quiet. Juliana, who'd tasted creations from the most famous chefs, stared. The cake was an old-world masterpiece. 3 perfect tiers of deep red velvet, cream cheese frosting applied with porcelain-like steadiness, and on top a hand-spun sugar rose, so delicate it seemed like it could shatter. Her grandfather, tears of gratitude on his face, told the story a young female baker with a failing shop had worked all night to save him from breaking his wife's heart. When they cut the cake, Juliana tested it with professional skepticism. The cake looked beautiful, but flavor is the truth. She took a bite. Her cynical, world-weary professional world stopped. The cake wasn't just good, it was a revelation. The texture was light and moist and perfect. The frosting was a perfect balance of sweet and tangy. It was more than a cake, it was a story. It tasted like a grandmother's recipe book. Real ingredients, time, patience. It tasted like something rare in Juliana's world. It tasted like love. She looked at her grandfather and saw pure, relieved joy. She glanced at her grandmother, who took a bite and for the first time that day, broke into a genuine, radiant smile. Juliana, the feared critic who could topple restaurants with a single paragraph, felt something shift. She pulled out her phone, read the bakery name on the box. The sweetest thing. As the city's most honest food critic, she knew what she had to do. This wasn't just a piece of cake, it was the story of the year, and she intended to tell it. I spent the rest of Saturday in a quiet, bittersweet haze. After Calvin left with the cake, A calm sense of closure settled over me. I had done one final good thing, honored my craft and helped a good man honor his wife. I thought it was a fitting last chapter for my small failed bakery. I cleaned the kitchen with meticulous care, not for tomorrow's baking, but for the bank representative who would come to liquidate the place next week. That night I slept a deep, dreamless sleep for the first time in a year. The fight felt over. I had lost, and strangely I was at peace. The next morning I woke to an unusual silence. My phone, usually buzzing with bank alerts and supplier emails, was quiet. Then at 9 a.m., it began to buzz, not once, but dozens of times. A frantic flood of notifications. Annoyed, I checked it, expecting a glitch. It wasn't, it was a surge. My dormant social page, which normally got a couple of likes a week, was exploding. Dozens, then hundreds of new followers, mentions, tags. A friend texted a link to the city's most popular food blog, run by Juliana. Her reviews were legendary. Her words could build or break reputations. The lead story that morning was not about a flashy downtown restaurant. It was about a small, failing neighborhood bakery. It was about me. The headline read something like, "A forgetful grandfather and the best red velvet cake in America." I read it with shaking hands. It was a masterpiece. Juliana told the whole human story. The near disaster at a birthday party, the grandfather's frantic quest, and the unknown baker who worked through the night to save the day. Then she wrote about the cake, not just describing it, but loving it. She praised the impossibly light, flavorful crumb, the perfect balance of cream cheese frosting, and that heartbreakingly beautiful sugar-spun rose on top. She closed with a single life-changing paragraph. "I have eaten at the finest restaurants in the world," she wrote. "I've had desserts made by Michelin-starred chefs, but the cake I ate last night, baked not for profit or glory, but as a simple act of human kindness, was without a doubt the best cake I have ever had. The sweetest thing is not just a bakery, it is a treasure, and we are fools to let it die." When I finished the article, months of held-back tears streamed down my face. The phone on my counter, silent for weeks, began ringing, and didn't stop all day. The following Monday, I arrived to a line that stretched down the block, faces full of hopeful, hungry curiosity. I spent the day in joyful, chaotic disbelief. By 10 Haura, I had sold out of everything. Orders came in for my grandmother's red velvet like never before. I laughed, I cried, I baked. Late that afternoon, while cleaning the glorious mess of a sold-out shop, the bell chimed. I expected a customer. Instead, it was Juliana. She wasn't there as a critic, but as a visitor. Kind, intelligent, amused. She looked at my flour-dusted apron and the busy, now-alive bakery. "Looks like you'll be busy for a while," she said. Then she gestured to the empty display case. "I believe you're going to need some help." "Help?" I said, half laughing, half panicked. "I need more than help. I need a miracle." She smiled calmly. "I don't believe in miracles, Rosa," she said. "I believe in good investments. And you're the best investment I've seen in this city in a long time." Her offer wasn't to wash dishes. It was a business proposition. She explained she'd been looking for a project to invest in, not only with money but with her business acumen. She wanted to be a silent partner. Handle marketing, numbers, expansion, everything I struggled with, while I did what I was born to do, bake. One non-negotiable condition: the bakery's heart, my grandmother's recipes, our commitment to quality, and our neighborly kindness would never change. I accepted without hesitation. The months that followed were whirlwind work. Hard, joyful, and deeply satisfying. With Juliana's guidance and capital, we didn't just save the bakery. We transformed it. We renovated the cramped kitchen, hired a small talented team. The sweetest thing stopped being a one-woman struggle and became a thriving, beloved city institution. Juliana and I, the feared critic and the quiet baker, became unlikely but close friends. Two women from different worlds, united by a love of good food, and by a serendipitous story about a forgetful old man and a last-minute birthday cake. A year later, the story ends as it began. With a cake. On a bright Saturday afternoon, my bakery was closed to the public for a private party. Calvin's wife Eleanor's 81st birthday. The room buzzed with family. Calvin looked like pure joy. Eleanor glowed. I brought out the cake, another magnificent three-tier red velvet, a perfect echo of the one I made that desperate night. I didn't carry it alone. Beside me was my partner, friend, and sister, Juliana. We placed the cake on the table. The room erupted in song. I looked around at the thriving bakery, at smiling faces that felt like family, and thought of the woman I'd been a year before, alone, defeated, minutes from locking the door on her dream. That night I thought I was simply baking a final act of kindness. I had no idea I was baking a new life, my own future. A simple, beautiful story of how a single selfless act can change everything. What do you think about Juliana's review and her decision to partner with the bakery? Tell us in the comments. If this warmed your heart, hit like and subscribe for more uplifting stories, and click the bell so you never miss an upload.